Vanakkam, Namaste, and blessings to everyone across the globe. This is Priestess Bairavee Balasubramaniam, PhD. Today I'm going to be speaking to you about a key aspect of my spiritual journey which has been on my mind as of late, and I have seen others thinking along similar lines. And that is, what do I call myself and why? Now, this isn't a question of titles. It isn't a question of trying to represent yourself in a way that makes you look cool or powerful or all-knowing. It's about embodiment, coming into your own power and being comfortable with what you are, who you are, and just how powerful you are. Many of us, especially in recent months, have come to the awareness and deep realization that we are, in fact, spirit. We are embodiments, we are aspects, we are parts of that great essence that permeates all things, all beings, all people. We are at one with the vibration of the cosmos itself. In the spiritual paradigm, we say this over and over and over again. We come from the one source. We are all interconnected. But in day-to-day reality, we have clear boundaries. We have a boundary that separates yourself from another person. We have a boundary that separates one object from another object, even within the womb. We have a boundary that separates the developing fetus and the mother that hosts the fetus through that entire process. It is an inescapable aspect of our physical manifestations. I say that it's not a paradox. Those two are simply truths which exist at different levels of understanding. So I do believe on the concept of healthy boundary and the need for a sense of definition of that boundary as we exist in this world. Now the challenge becomes, as we come into awareness of our interconnectedness and our unity with all, what happens to our uniqueness? It's not a paradoxical question. Those two are not mutually exclusive aspects of being. They simply need to be looked at different levels of existence. As an aspect of spirit, as one shard of the divine, as you could put it, as one manifestation of that divine spark, I am different to you, though we are equal. But why should I present myself in a certain way and someone present themselves in a certain way? How do we express that difference and unity at the same time? And this is what has been on my mind. Now, for those of you who've been to my website, you know that I wear different hats, so to speak. I am a priestess. I am a political scientist by training. I have a PhD. They used to call me a child prodigy and all that stuff, but I became someone who spoke to people about how to activate their brains. I spoke about neuroscience. I spoke about creativity, and I worked with a lot of children in my own community. So, and apart from that, there's writing poetry, there's doing research, there's astrology, and a bunch of other stuff as well. So my life has many different facets. And just bear in mind, I'm not saying this to big me up. I'm just using myself as an example because my experience is the only one that I can truly speak for. So I was wondering, how do I define myself? I've got all these hats. What do I use? What do I say? How do I define myself in a way that just doesn't make me seem like I'm bragging or I'm trying to look cooler than everybody else? And I'll be honest, when I began my spiritual awakening, it stood in stark contrast to my training as an academic. My particular understanding of the spiritual and the role of the feminine in the spiritual stood in contrast to the current practices and social conventions surrounding women and religion and spirituality in my own culture. What I stood for and what I represented was and is still fairly rare, at least from women of my background. So, coming to the conclusion that I needed to own my priestess self in public wasn't a light task. It wasn't something that I took because it made me feel good. It was a task that actually was quite painful. I thought about it. I went, oh my God, if I take this, aren't I going to alienate people who may be interested in me as an academic? Aren't I going to alienate members in my society? My father and I are both fairly social figures within the Malaysian Tamil community, where both of us have done motivational speaking. And what would people say? How would it impact the rest of the family? All of these were questions that plagued me for a while. But finally, making that decision didn't happen with this great epiphany. My fears didn't go away. In fact, once in a while I still think, am I doing the right thing? And then I remember, yes, I am. It took me a lot of reflection, a lot of introspection and analysis. And one day all of that just didn't matter. I just knew this was my title. I have been a priestess in several different lifetimes. I know this partially because when I go to places I've never been to before, I know where certain things are without there being not any possible way for me to have even known it. Things which perhaps the locals of that land are not even aware of. This happened to me during my pilgrimage in Nepal. I just pointed to a map and ended up finding some ancient temple there. So I've had a lot of those experiences, and memories from those past times come back. And it's not something that many within the academic community, which I am affiliated with, may represent or recognize. It certainly doesn't exist well within a positivistic worldview that expects everything to be quantified and expects everything to be measured. But there is so much to the world which we can't put in those boxes. And for me, I decided that I was going to take that risk. Screw my ego, screw all those fears. It was time for me to simply be myself and accept whatever came, whatever challenges arose. Whoever wanted to reject me for calling myself what I am was more than welcome to. When I went public, so to speak, I wrote a message on my Facebook wall because most of my friends are from different parts of the world, as I have lived in many different countries. And to my surprise, everyone accepted me. Somehow they knew, and surprisingly, my closest friends are atheists and rationalists and skeptics. But they somehow knew, and they were just like, yeah, that's you, it's cool. We accept you as you are. And I just went, wow. And I realized that that struggle was completely my own. But the point I'm trying to make is, when I call myself a priestess, it is not for prestige. It is not for profit. It is a commitment. It is a declaration of who I am in this world and how I embody my essence. It is also a statement of the divine that says, I am in communion with you all of the time. I am serving you all of the time. In every act, I am a priestess when I go to the mall. I am a priestess when I step into the shower. I am a priestess every single moment of every single day. And that is why I go by the title that I do. Now, I feel, and the reason I'm saying this is because I feel that many women in particular, men to some extent as well, they're hesitant to step into the light and step into the title, so to speak, of what they are. They're afraid of what people might say. They're afraid of whether they're going to get rejected or not. And those are valid concerns because we live in a world where many do not understand. They are beginning to, but many are still judgmental about the spiritual. It takes courage. And I'll be honest, I didn't expect to go public as soon as I did, but I guess something deeper inside me just said, Bairavee, get your stuff together. This is who you are, accepted, period. And it worked. I hope that this message is of use to those who are coming out of their spiritual closet, so to speak. There are so many who have academic degrees, who live and do, so to speak, mundane jobs that to all external appearances seem to have nothing to do with spiritual. So many people have reached out to me ever since I went public, and I am grateful. I am grateful to know that I am not alone. I am not that I thought I was the only person, but it's always nice to know specifically who else is in the same shoes as you are. I'm grateful to know that others have struggled with this. I am grateful to those who feel inspired by the choices that I make, and I am inspired daily by the choices they make. And for me, coming out was the best thing I ever did, and I have no regrets about it whatsoever. Sometimes some people may challenge me about it, but as long as I speak from my heart, it all works. So that's the message I wanted to give today, and I hope it is of use and resonance with many at this time, with Lilith and Leo teaching us to rise. Thank you so very much. and blessings to all. Vanakkam.